This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from Kingdom of the Wicked and Dan Brown's origin. There's also mention of Lord of Shadows, House of the Dragon, Priory of the Orange Tree, and the Black Witch. For full list, please see show notes.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I am Laura Marie.
And I am Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri. This is book 2 in the Burning Kingdoms trilogy. Now, as we always say on ACOFAE Podcast, because we love consistency, always meet your idols. Jess, how are the idols in this book?
I'm glad we did this time because completely different than what I had in mind compared to the first book. The first book, I just thought like, okay, they were there. Well, they as referring to the Yuxa, of course. Terrifying in this book. And I think we were chatting about it earlier, where in the first book, you're unsure of how involved they're going to be. You just knew about the poems and the rivers and they're kind of just there. And then in the second book, you're like, oh, that was just a means to an end for them. This is the real shit that they're into.
Yes, these gods, these Yakuza are absolutely terrifying. Always meet your idols so you know who you are worshiping. And oh my goodness. I think this episode, just fair warning to everybody, it's just going to be Jess and I gushing over this book. Love this book. Jess pointed out that we didn't really know the Yakuza in the first book, and we do know them in the second book. I think that can be a fair statement for the whole book in general. Like, book 1 is a good book 1 to set it up. Book 2 just ran, and I am floored by this.
No, it's so strong. And the second book could always go one of two ways with a lot of trilogies and series. It's either where things really get really start picking up, or I don't know if I want to keep reading this. That is not the case with this, at least between Laura and I. It's such a strong book. But I did go into it with some hesitancy, only because, Laura, you had read this, and then you were like, you know what, I need to read it again to get a better grasp at it. And then you read it like an additional time, probably. Like, did you read the whole thing or just kind of like perused it that third time?
So I read it once a couple months ago. I read it again this week. I finished it on Wednesday, and then I just started it over again. Okay. So I'm like 30% in at this point, so like 2.5 times.
But that being said, you gave me kind of this disclaimer when I started reading this book. You said, pace yourself, which I did. And because I also pretty much read it at speed. I read it at like 1.2. And you also said this is going to be great preparation for you for when you eventually get into Game of Thrones, because it's so politically heavy, which those two things alone are already really intimidating to me. The last time we did like this felt more high fantasy compared to other books. And I am immediately thinking of Priory, and Priory was already an intimidating book for a lot of people. So I was already like, oh my God, like, how am I going to comprehend this? This book was so good that I want to do a second reread to get more out of it immediately. I just kind of got to go back into it. And then you would totally benefit from rereading this before the third book comes out, because I think it's so much information, but not in a bad way. You're just completely immersed. But it does take a minute or, a little bit to get back into it if you didn't come from immediately from the Jasmine throne. If you didn't read it back to back, or if you didn't do a reread, you have to kind of find your footing again, I think.
No, you absolutely do, because it starts with a cold open with a character that we haven't met before. So if you're just, and I was very guilty of this. The first time I read this, I was not sucked in immediately. I was like, who is this? I'm not really feeling it. It took me a couple of chapters before I was like, oh, yeah, all right, all in, because of that cold open with a character that we didn't know. But there are a lot of characters that we do know. Jess, who are they?
Yeah, we have a lot. I mean, basically everybody's back from the first book. You have Priya, Maline. Seema is back. She's Priya's assistant. You have Rook, Bhumika. We love Bhumika. Chandra, who is Maline's brother. Ashok, which I thought he was dead in the first one, but we'll get into that. And then we have Kartik, Aditya, Rao, Razia, and the Yaksa. Yaksa.
Yep, Yaksa.
Yeah, and think of them as how you have the surreal and then you have a surreal. It's kind of that same plural singular concept. You have the Yaksa, and then in certain situations there is a Yaksa. So yes, think of it like that.
Yes. And there are other characters, but they are like sporadically mentioned, or they're named, or there's a lot of like low princes and a lot of like politics stuff, just like minute details that we are just not going to discuss here.
Yeah. And even so, because and I think some of us are collectively guilty of, like, if you're coming from an SJM fantasy world, if that's like your kind of like your gateway into fantasy, there's with those lots of names, there's also each of the chapters, it'll be like a chapter number and then the person's point of view that you're in. Some of those characters have a chapter, so that could throw you off, and they just wind up being bridge characters, really, to get you from like one point in the book to another.
Yes, and they're all really good. Okay, so we mentioned that the opening starts with a cold open with Karthik, and he's very important. Let's get right into it. He's the faceless son. He's the one that kind of sets up the schism in the priests, and he's there at the end. Oh boy. Huh.
I love when he goes, they're like, oh, the nameless son. And he's like, well, not anymore.
Yes.
He's just like the sarcasm.
All right.
Like, I tried.
Yeah. So good. And I like this because he's just a servant in the temple, and he overhears, everybody's overhearing everybody. This is politics. And he overhears and oversees Maline, and he hears the priests say that they have never seen anyone more like righteous and pious. And that like really stuck with him, and that, that carries us through. My gosh. The language used here, I'm going to say it's flowery. I'm not trying to be like punny, but it is. And it's very descriptive, and it's very beautiful, and it's also very horrific. And I have to tell you, these sequences that we have with Priya, where she's trying to like cure the rot from the land and like curing, or like the buds, again with the body horror, with the buds and things. But in this book, as we're going to continue to say, everything is more. And here I felt the descriptions painted like a lushness, right? Like, because, and I'm going to bring this up, but the Yaksa are so fucking scary because they demand that you carve out your heart and like hollow yourself, and they are responsible for the rot, and they see the rot as transformative, and they call it blooming and new life. They want to make everyone like them. So when Priya is out there and she's stopping the rot, and she's like actively stopping.
And it's one of the things that she, like, I want to say powers that she got from being thrice born, that we find out at the end of the first book, the Jasmine throne, because it was, and I think she's kind of, there's kind of like a passage of time. It doesn't pick right up, obviously, where the first book left off. But you understand that there's been growth, there's been change, like, things are happening in Parijatdvipa. Then there's also stuff happening in Ahiranya. And there's, you pick back, when we're with the characters, you're like, okay, this is where we are at a point in time. This is what's been happening. But one of the main things that's been happening with Priya is she is stopping the rot, and people are asking her to leave where she's kind of in this area with Bhumika. And, she's going out into, I don't want to say the villages, but like amongst the people in Ahiranya.
Yes. And she's like doing her best because there are only 2 thrice born. There's only 2 elders. It's just her and Bhumika. They are the temple elders. They're running the country. They're responsible for everybody. So they are doing their best. So like Bhumika runs the country and Priya's out with the people doing the like practical application of the work that Bhumika does with the highborns. It's all just like so fantastic. And then Maline is on procession to Saketa to the High Prince. So that's what she's doing, and she's dealing with her politics. I want to stop here and say, already we have discussed Bhumika and Priya and Maline. These are 3 bad bitches. These are amazing women. And it reminds me of a quote from one of my favorite books. This is Excalibur by Bernard Cornwell. And the opening line of that book is, "Women, how they haunt this tale." And that is so applicable here, because those 3 women and their actions are shaping this entire book. And they are amazing. Amazing.
And in every capacity, and we were chatting before how, you have Maline, who is very self-aware. You have Priya and Bhumika, who are constantly being given choices. I mean, Maline, too, that you're just like, what is the lesser of the 2 evils? And I actually saw somebody on TikTok say, I wish I had the user, but he even said, this is a perfect example of these women do everything right the entire book, the way things are, I say, quote, the way things are supposed to be, and it's still not enough.
No, it's still not enough. And they are hindered by the men at every single turn.
Yeah. And that's not fantasy. That is very much the world in which we live.
Yes, and it's so frustrating, especially with Maline. Like, she's Empress. She has to, Empress without a throne. But, she has to deal with all these fucking men who do not respect or listen to her, really, about any sort of military strategy.
No, and, that's one of the things that is she having the conversation with Mahesh, where she's basically saying, she's like, this is where I am. Her brother, Aditya, he didn't even want the throne.
I cannot...
But to go with that, it's the people, well, Aditya is still alive, so they're kind of dismissive with you because there's still a chance that Aditya will come into, and Aditya's the firstborn, he's the first brother, he's supposed to have the throne, and Chandra is the little brother who's like, when everybody gave everybody more attention, and I have small dick energy, and because the way you hate Aditya, we've always hated Chandra, since the beginning, but you want to talk about the misogyny in this book. Chandra is burning up women, bodies, there's just bodies burning, and women specifically, and he even says he refers to women as monsters with the faces of women.
Yes.
His misogyny just bleeds through,
and he can't stop using them either. So he's not only is he burning them and relishing in their pain and wallowing in his self-righteousness, he is then stealing the dignity of their death and using their ashes and stuff to create his false flame, which is in itself blasphemy. Which Chandra does get his just desserts, and I do love that. We'll talk about that later. But damn, he was frustrating. But Aditya drives me fucking insane because the inaction of men and the willful ignorance of men is something that will always drive me insane. And Maline is my homegirl on this. She's in her head, she's like, fuck, Aditya, all you had to do was stick your head out the tent and you would have known what was going on. But you're in here staring at your fucking water bowl, not helping anyone.
Well, and then it amplifies when she's having this strategy, and then he comes in I'll do it, lead this whole military regime, and everybody afterwards did you expect that? No, that wasn't part of my fucking plan. And he just like made everything worse, especially when it's what's the word that I'm looking for? Because I'm so hyped up. Kind of overrides her power in that moment where she's trying to be like in this political position to show ownership despite what everybody is trying to think.
I want to talk about the attack, because all of this kind of starts with the attack of Chandra's false flame at the maze fort of Saketa at the High Prince. The High Prince, whose daughter is the wife of Chandra. All of these connections. That battle, I think I said it in the first book, but I think this would really be beautiful on screen. Because Game of Thrones, the OG, did a lot with fire arrows and the beauty of like arcing like fire arrows and stuff, and how that can be like very cinematic. And I think in situations like this, where this false flame is, they say like dancing and twirling and like catching on things that shouldn't burn, I think that would be like strangely lovely on screen, especially if it were dark. But in this situation, I was so stressed for Maline. She's trying to get that conch, and those fucking men are not listening to her, and they are freaking out, and they don't know what to do, and she has to call retreat. And then the general is just like, well, you shouldn't have done that. Fuck you.
How many times did you shake your head reading this? Be like exasperated where some of these instances and things that were being said, were you just like, of course.
I honestly just kept thinking of how much of a better person Maline is, because I just would have like, for a lot of instances like this, I just would have stabbed someone in the neck. That's just like what would have happened. I just know myself, and it just would have been so bad, because they would be like, no, your soldiers need to, because that's what happens. He's like, no, sacrificing soldiers, because that is like an undercurrent theme of this book, is like what sacrifice is, what it means, and like who it benefits, right?
Well, and I think there's even that, not only is that a plot and a theme, it's also said at one point, it's like, who is it really a sacrifice if you don't lose out on something?
Yes. Oh my gosh. There's so much here. But the fact that Maline has to sound retreat, and then the soldiers are like, no, we just should have like kept dying. They'll win eventually. And Maline's like, no. You did this without my approval. You know how I want things to go. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. And I'm going to publicly shame you about this, but I'm also going to privately shame you about this under the guise of being like, I'm going to warn you out of respect, but really I'm just going to berate you twice. Fuck you. Queen status.
Speaking of berating, how about when Maline is doing her like letters over to...
Love the pen paling.
And Bhumika's reading her letters and reading the letters from Maline to Priya. And Priya's like, you've been reading my letters, but you knew all this, didn't you already? And she's like, I'm not reading your letters. I'm reading the letters from the Empress who is writing to me, Lady Bhumika of Ahiranya, who is writing to my top elder.
She's like,
And she's like, I don't know. First there's all the emotional back and forth. And well, we could get into the pen paling of it all later. But when you have Maline's people try to berate Priya publicly, once Priya eventually gets over to where Maline is, and she goes, so I'll give you a choice, and she gave him two choices. You could either do this, apologize, or you can take it out on your men. Mm-hmm. You pick, because I heard she wasn't the first one who went down swinging, kind of thing.
Yep, she's like, she didn't swing first. Fuck you. Like, we love it. They're just both fucking queens.
They're just so women, right?
Yes.
They're just all so good. I can't get over it. That's all I'm going to be saying this whole episode.
I want to make a Black Witch connection here. So when we're talking about the first attack with the false flame at the maze fort of Saketa, before Priya gets there, because after this is when Priya goes, they call it Mother's Fire. They're like, no, this is Mother's Fire. This is Mother's Flame. This is Flame of the Mothers. And it makes all of these men flee and run in panic. And I just find it very similar to the Black Witch, where you have this male oppressive society that used women as a weapon, and then that image is used to strike fear into men for the rest of history. It is just... It is really something. Somebody write a paper on that.
You want to?
Sort
Do
of.
it like a journal.
Do it myself.
I'll do it.
I'll do it myself. But yeah, I just find that so interesting. I love when that is there.
While also and with that, to have the fear while also worshiping at the same time. Yes, because I didn't even make that Black Witch connection, because that's
deeply
exactly
devoted.
Deeply devoted. And then I did not even make that connection, because then they want to shit on them the entire time. I mean, they don't even want Maline as an empress. It's just a reoccurring thing in so many cultures.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so very interesting. Okay. We're talking about Ashok rising from the water. This whole sequence, this is what I got, like a shiver. I got a shiver when I was reading this, and I was like, this is an dread moment, because the descriptions is like, his face was like moss, and then it was hard wood, and then the skin grew like over it, and then there was an entity inside of him that was sleeping, and then his skin was speaking to the entity.
And we know at this point that one of the places that the rot resides is in the water.
Yes. It's just like, gosh. So Ashok rising, and it says like he's woken and reborn, that he's the brother. And of course, spoiler alert, obviously, like he's the guy. Like, this is our guy. This is who Ahiranya is named after. He's our man here. But he's wearing Ashok as like a skin, so that this is not good. I think listeners know that I really love religion. So this whole religion plot line here, and this whole priest schism, I will be honest, the first time took me a little bit. It took me a little bit. The second time I got it. The third little bit that I read of it, I really kind of got it, and I got kind of clues. And I just want to say it's really well written. Jess, what did you think of the religious politics here?
I feel like I said in earlier in the episode, I can definitely benefit from a second reread. Not because I didn't understand. I mean,
it's just so rich.
It's so good, and I'm trying to think of like how I want to say it, but there's really not much. Like, it's good, it's rich, it's detailed. I feel like I want to have a hard copy of this book.
Definitely.
And on top of that, like, I want two copies. I want a signed copy, if that exists somewhere. And then I want, like, I'll use the quote, like, a scrapbook copy. I don't highlight in a lot of my books, but I feel like this is a perfect book where I could also use it for academia. And just like highlight it and make notations and make all those connections, because there's just so much that you can take from it. I think a lot of people, if you're not used to high fantasy, if you're not used to politics, if you're not used to just like conversations about religions, and different sects of it, because that's a big thing in this book too that we were talking about, because it's not just, there's so many subcategories. Everybody kind of has their own little kingdom while making the alliances, trying to survive, trying not to go to war. You want to make sure everything's kind of lined up. Gosh, now I'm terrified for Game of Thrones.
No, you can get Game of Thrones. So I think the religions here. Okay, so we have the Nameless, and the Nameless are the ones that look into the water and get prophecies. That is Aditya and Rao. And then you have the Mothers of Flame, and that is Chandra, and that is burning women. And then you have the Yaksa, and then within the Mothers of Flame, yes, within the Mothers of Flame, there is a sect called the Nameless, or like the Faceless Mother. That is who Karthik, that is Karthik's
from the
sect.
beginning, right? Okay,
from the beginning. That's Karthik's sect, and they have all of the names of the mothers tattooed on them so that you can worship any one of them. It's kind of like a universal situation, the Faceless Mothers. So that is that, and they are like the warriors, kind of. Like, because Karthik trains all of the warriors.
We learned about the 4 sects in the first one, too. Now that,
Yeah. But not in as much detail. We have so much detail here, and it really helps to flush it out. It's just so good. The Faceless Mother. And because I bring this up because one of the priests of the Faceless Mother is the one who saves Maline from this false flame. And, you know, she goes and verifies the priest is one of the Faceless Mother priests. She checks the body, and then later, she and Priya go to the temple and they confirm everything there. But that priest that saves Maline's life was sent to make contact with her to start this plot a lot faster. He just saved her life and died before he could start the message. And I just found that really interesting. Like they were trying to set this up from the beginning. He just died before he got his message out.
Whoops.
Whoops. But I appreciate that though, because it's not like they weren't trying. It's not like, what was one of the things you said with Kingdom of the Wicked, where we were saying oh my gosh, so much could have been prevented if the grandmother was even willing to have the conversation with Amelia and her sister when they were younger. So it wasn't for lack of communication. There was just a roadblock in that communication. Yes. Okay. Jess, when we we have some, as you so eloquently put it, bridge chapters where the Yaksa are waking up, and Ashok is going to get his sisters and brothers from the trees, their bones, and pull them up from it. It's all very graphic and deep earth and all of this stuff. And their faces are like moss. Their teeth are fruit pits that are sharpened, all of this stuff. Bhumika has a migraine. I feel that. And Bhumika's migraine doesn't get better until the Yaksa show up at her door. And I love Bhumika so much, where she's just well, this is a crazy fucking situation. What do I do here? I'm going to get on my knees and praise the gods because they're scary in person. Appreciate the fuck out of her.
She's amazing. I love her so much throughout this whole book. Every time it would be I'm just randomly saying a chapter number, 19, Bhumika. And I was boss bitch Bhumika. I was so excited because I love her. I love her. She's so practical. She even brings up the quote that she said in the first book where her and Priya are talking, and she goes, but what about Maline? And, if it ever gets to a point where I have to unalive her. And they were, when they were just talking about strategy, political strategy in their war, she goes, that's for us to decide. We're not letting other people dictate how circumstances are going to lay out, which is also kind of now saying it out loud. It's very foreshadowing for when Priya is talking to Seema, and she's saying, oh, I just need you to do this to control the situation. And I was you can't control the situation. If there's anything I've learned in my million years of life,
Oh, is that at the end?
Yeah.
She's like, go give me a half hour and then go tell everybody that I betrayed the Empress. So then it's like this and then it's like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I understand, really understand the need for control. Nobody, like, believe me, I understand. But when you're reading a book like this, where there's so many factors and so much politics, I'm like, this isn't going to go the way anything needs to go, no matter how much you think like, I got it. I'm just going to control the situation. I'm not frantic. It's going to be fine. Seema, go do this. No, it's not going to be fine. It's not going to be fine.
It's not going to be fine. And I think the thing that I love so much about Bhumika is the first time I went through this, I was kind of annoyed. It was like, why are we getting so much with Padma, her baby? It's like, why are we getting this? Why are we getting this? Of course, whoa, we understand why we get this at the end. But I just love that she recognizes that she, like, Bhumika is being selfish, like, towards the end when she makes her decision. She's like, no, this is going to be easy for me. I'm going to have no memory of any of this stuff that I'm leaving. She's just, oh my God, she's just absolutely the best. Something that is also really amazing that I loved was Maline asking Priya to, like, come help her, and Priya being like, okay, here I come, and taking her friend, and like,
Priya's love for Maline is, I'm trying to, I don't even think I have the right word. Her love for Maline just spans across anything. And in that, and you even see it at the end of the book in the epilogue where she goes, you know what? And they're all very self-aware. All the women are very self-aware. Because Priya even says, like, I could love hard enough and strong enough for both of us as long as she's safe. You know, like, this is what I had to do. And then even in one of the scenes with Priya and Maline, where Malini's saying, are you angry that I don't love you as you do to me? You know, like, little things of, you know, like, we love each other, but maybe not in the same way. Or when Maline says, like, something about, like, if I told her that I loved every bit of her, if I loved her without her power or with it, like, Priya is part of her power as much as her power is a part of Priya. She's like, she would have heard the lie in that. She knows the type of person I am. I break down everybody's characteristics. Like, I am an empress. I am a leader. I also have to think politically to be like the pros and cons, the whole thing. She was like, so I'm not going to say anything at all. But that doesn't negate the love that she does have for her. I think that's just like a running also theme with a lot of the books that we talk about. And just because you don't, like, love or appreciate one way compared to another person, that doesn't negate how you care about somebody. You care in the capacity in which you're able to.
Well, and that is such a good segue to what Maline asks Priya to do. And Maline, throughout the course of the book, asks Priya to do a lot, and Priya always does do it. Maline asks Priya to come with her to the temple of the Faceless Mother to, like, kind of show her allegiance, because nobody besides Maline wants Priya at the war camp. She's very suspicious. She's getting, like, harassed. Her people get the worst spot. Like, everything sucks. And Priya has also been injured. The false fire did burn her, and she went to the Sangam, and she was healed by Bhumika. I'm saying in air quotes because Priya and Bhumika have been cut off from each other in the Sangam. They are alone, and Priya is talking to a false Bhumika, who is very fucking scary. Very scary. Scared the shit out of me. But it is through Priya. I don't know. I guess, like, her love language would be like, what, like acts of service? I feel like that's what it would be here, because she's always fucking being of service. And Maline, self-aware queen, is saying, like, I am using you. I am using you. I know that I am, for your power, for what you can do for me. So I do appreciate that. But I have got to tell you, Priya humbling herself in the temple, like, pissed me right off. But the gift and the politics will politic, the politicking of giving the false flame priest like to Maline, and then like giving her all of this information about like, well, these rebels, there's a schism here. These rebels will help you. Like, you know, this is what we're going to do. And then the false flame. I love that. I love the idea of the false flame, and then Maline's whole like presentation of it, right? And like holding it up and like watching it die. It was very Daenerys, and I just loved it.
Oh, this is like, see, this is where I feel overwhelmed, where I'm like, how am I going to handle Game of Thrones? And then we did, I think when I was out to see you, you shared with me a whole Dany Targaryen montage. And I was like, I love her. I'm not going to let anybody, I don't care where your opinions are, but things that I saw, she's going to be my favorite person. But I feel like it's going to go in that direction for here too.
I think so. But I mean, we can pivot right to the absolutely amazing, fantastic display of power that Priya shows when everybody has to go to the river, right? We all have to go to the river. Rao et al. Are going to stay at the fort in Saketa and try to hold it, but the rest of the army's got to go to the ford. They got to keep like going to the city. They've got to win this fucking war. So Maline asks Priya again, like, go do something. Go over there with these people that don't really like you, you know, these other low princes, and see what you can do and build a bridge so that we can get from over here over the river so that we can go, right? And it all goes to complete shit. Priya goes into the water and she strikes a deal with Bhumika, not Bhumika. And like, I swear to God, just like never strike a deal without knowing like details. Oh my God. But the desperation, I get it.
And that could be said with Bhumika too, because remember, she goes to make the deal and she's like, but I need you to promise me. You have to promise me you'll take care of Padma. And Padma's her daughter. And they're like, well, we really can't promise that. And she's like, then what do you want for me to do? You want these expectations. And that's the whole thing with, it's like with bargains and loopholes and wishes and everything that we talk about in past episodes. You're like, there's a loophole here. If you're not making, there's anytime there's some sort of bargain and we're reading about it, I'm just thinking, no, this is no bargain ever turns out well unless your favorite Archeron.
Yeah, for real. Even that one took a little while.
Yeah.
But this one is so scary, right? So Priya she goes to the Sangam and she hears the voice like sapling, and you know, it's Bhumika. She knows it's not Bhumika, and she has this like exchange. The Bhumika, not Bhumika, says like, your flesh is my strength. And, you know, like and then she goes, oh, you're a Yaksa. And she's like, yes, worship, you know, you should worship me. Worship is a hollowing. You carve out a piece of yourself for a piece of us, and we fill that space. And, you know, and all of what that entails. And she's like, you know, this power, is magic, and magic demands sacrifice, again with our sacrificing. And then she's like, you took something from us. We want it back. You must return something to the Yaksa. And she's like, okay, fine, like whatever, like fine. Doesn't ask what that is. And the Yaksa's like, details later. Later. And then, but she makes that deal and she gets to use the strength. And because of that, she can, you know, throw a wall of water and build the bridge. And they do win that situation. But like, damn. Well, damn. Oh, and then specifically, Priya feels changed and she's inhuman. And she has that whole situation where Rao has to pick her up from the water and she is not human.
Didn't Rao wind up needing help too?
Yeah.
Am I missing that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she was just like, it was just like, no energy. You know, she depleted herself.
And she was bleeding like flowers, and like flowers were coming off of her and like flaking off of her.
Oh, and they were saying like her like veins were like green. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like sap under her eyes. So they threw like a cloth over her so like nobody could see her. And Maline stayed with her in the tent. It was very, very intense, but also very visual. Like I was in it. Like I could see it.
Well, and And throw, you know what? No, I'll wait till the end because it's just it's based on description. I'll wait till the end.
But they do win this battle, and Priya, love this. Priya and Maline do get their spicy scene. They get a spicy scene. They finally have spice, and I love it for them. And I don't want to like get into it, but the detail that I picked up on my read is that the flower that was made from like Maline's pain, from that Priya made for her, that they wear, that Maline wears on her neck, the needle flower pulses during their sex like a heartbeat. So that is like a key that it's not quite.
Well, I didn't even feel like it was I guess some people would say it would be spice, but I felt like there was so much love there and respect that they have for each other that I was like, good for them. I am so happy because they have been struggling. Like even at the beginning of the book, when Maline is writing all her like pen pal, she can't focus. She can't be a strong enough leader. She needs she needs Priya there, and now Priya's there. And even when she sends Priya to, be at the front of the lines, even though Priya, she considers like a last resort, because if you have to use Priya, that's pretty serious. She just has the utmost respect for her. And even then she's like, what am I doing? Why is she over there? I hate that I'm not there to see what's happening. Like, she's constantly consumed by Priya.
It's so sweet. And she lets herself to an extent too, especially because like she writes the love letters and she has a whole trove that she never sends, and she just like hides in her like jewelry box, and she like takes them out at night to read them. We're up to my favorite scene. My favorite scene is the Yaksa banquet scene with all of the highborns. I like this scene for a lot of reasons, but it is very much the scene from the finale of Sleep No More in my head. The big orchestra, the orchestra music playing with the graphics and the masks, and it's all very lush and like horrific, but also like gothic and scary. If you're in New York, go to Sleep No More. It's awesome. But that is the visual that I had here, and I loved it. Very scary, but we learned a lot here. We learned so much. Ashok tells Bhumika so much here. And I just have notes that I just want to say real fast. So Ashok has been experimenting with Rook about cutting people off from the waters. And if they do that, they lose like who they are. They lose all of their memories, but you gain like all of the memories of the Yaksa and all of their knowledge. And then Ashok also says like kind of who he's telling Bhumika like who he is without saying like, this is me. So he's saying to Bhumika, he's like, after the first Yaksa who was, who is talking right now to Priya in the sangam, that her. After the first Yaksa, there was a second one, and that was a male. And he loved humans so much. And he's the one that created the temple structure. He's the one that loved the children and taught the children. He's the one that told them to pass through the waters. And he loved them so much that he kept the dead with him to wear as masks. And he's the one that is inside Ashok. And he's the one that the land is named after.
He's the one that's also the emotional, like he kind of gives that later in the book after the banquet scene. He's the one who's like, this isn't what the Yaksa is feeling. This is what Ashok, like the person's body, like you need to go off. You have to go handle this situation. Like I'm not telling, as in the Yaksa is not telling you, the soul in which I am embodying is.
Yes. Oh my God, it's so good. So much plot. I love this banquet scene, as I keep repeating, but I love it because the Yaksa are so scary. Again, always meet your idols, but they are scary in the way that beings that don't hold to like human like morals and ethics are. They're like alien scary because they have their own code. So like to them, they're like, okay, we're going to bring all of the highborn here, all of them who could possibly betray us, anybody that could leave the country, right? They're self-isolating. That's what they are. They're like closing the borders. Mm-hmm. like, we're going to bring you all here. We are going to feed you and like celebrate, and then we're going to turn you in. We're going to infect you with the rot, which is, again, not the rot is the end goal for the Yaksa. Oh my God.
They want things rotted, which is why they don't like Priya healing others from the rot.
I just thought of something amazing.
Let's say it.
There is a Captain Planet parody.
No way.
With, I think it's Don Cheadle. And he's dressed up as Captain Planet. And he just turns everyone on the planet into trees. And at the end, he's just like, I did it. I did it. They're all trees. I solved it all. They're all gone. They're all trees. And that is exactly what the Yaksa want. They want to rule the world that they are gods of, and they want everyone to be as they are. And it's horrifying. And they do that to the highborn of the country so that they are forced to then work and politic within the country for their own benefit, or else the Yaksa will continue the rot and kill them.
I am having a total brain freeze. What was the catalyst that had the Yaksa kind of take? Because why now? It's the age-old question. Why now? What was the catalyst? And now I'm drawing a blank when that catalyst was. Because all we knew from the Yaksa in the first book was Bhumika and Priya. They you guided them towards the thrice-born process.
Yes. I'm not sure. I think it might just be like a culmination of a bunch of like prophecy and like time and like, like magic building. I think it just might be.
Because I'm like, wait, I feel like I skipped over something here. But okay.
Yes. So good. I just love it so much. And everyone is like horrified, and everyone is like in different stages of the rot, and it's all different. And it's so scary because Bhumika comments throughout the book up until this point about the vanity of the highborn and how they want to make money, and they want to betray them because they were better under Chandra. They moved all of that stuff. So now they are stuck quite literally in Ahiranya working for that specifically, which so good. Oh, the politics are so good. So good. Also really good is when Maline finally meets Karthik and they have like an all out, and there's like plotting. There's just so much plotting there. It's so good, right? Like, I
mean, this whole book is, what I will say, this whole book is plotting, is clearly I don't want to say world building, because we got that in the first one. It's so detailed in a way that isn't exhausting. And the plotting you're not tired of. Like I will keep saying throughout this whole episode that it needs a reread to have a better grasp at it. Because if you had an addition, you've read it 2.5 times at this point, adding in your world religious studies, adding in your love for politics, everything that's included here, and you're like, wait, I need a minute, and me just like some basic schmo. I think it benefits everybody, and there's something you can take. Like, did you just have a better understanding the second time around, or did you pick up on things more?
I really solidified things the second time around, and I just picked up on the ideas of sacrifice and carving out pieces of yourself for other things, and then those other things becoming your whole life, when really you just needed to be yourself in the first place, right? That's really what all of this is. So yeah, because there's little clues about that, and it's like, to go through the waters, you have to have like a certain kind of traumatic, horrible experience where you're willing to like give that feeling part of you away for something, for power, because you have to sacrifice feeling for power. It's just all, and because absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you see that in Chandra and how he is so like horrifically misdirected, but we'll get that in the end.
I get that, but like, I feel like at the same time, as so many of us have unfortunately gone through different traumas and compartmentalized so much that like at that point you're like, you know what, take it. I've compartmentalized. I forgot about it. Take it and I'll get a little extra power out of it. I don't know. That doesn't sound so bad. If used, but with great power comes great responsibility, blah, blah, blah. I get that.
And if absolute power corrupts absolutely, then even though the people that have gone through the waters are immune, they have to watch the rot in other people, which is in and itself its own torture. So it's all very poetic and interesting. I fucking love when the priest gives the Yaksa arm, I think to Rao, while Maline is meeting with Karthik. That is also very Game of Thrones and fantastic. And just this tangible proof of a, like, I'm going to say esoteric. I think I'm using that wrong. Threat, right? Like a threat that's kind of like, oh, that's kind of fake. But like, no, actually this thing has come back to life. It was dead. It's coming back to life now. And it's like moving and shit. Like this shit is getting real. Like you have your politics and your fight for the kingdom, but also like we got this other shit happening.
But that's just consistent with so many things in fantasy and in politics where you're like, no, this is real. This is real. And then when the shit happens, you're like,
I fucking told you it was real.
You knew where I was going with that.
Mm-hmm. It's so good. Something that is not good, but turns out to be good, turns out to be just chef's kiss, is the deal that Maline strikes with Karthik and the priests, right? They say like, all right, we're going to help you. Chandra's not good. He's going to lead us all to ruin, but you have to promise that you will willingly burn on the pyre. We'll get you there. We'll get you there. It's fine. We'll put you as empress. But when you are there, you must die because that's what all of this is. My note says demand Maline burn for the priest's support.
Which is like,
right?
In that moment, and because
you're like,
in that moment when it happens, you're like, I did it. Like, and I know this would be for me. I did it all for fucking nothing. My initial thought, because you're like, you're going to acknowledge me. Why did we just go through all of this?
Right.
Why did I just go through all of this to end up
right back where we started?
Exactly where I started and what triggered this whole thing.
Yep. It's so frustrating. I said earlier that there's just like a lot of stuff that I wanted to bring up and talk about. Chandra has his own POVs here and he has his own, just like talks with the high priest and he is trying to like justify himself but in one of his POVs he does say that he is having nightmares and he starts to dream of women laughing at him and saying that he is wrong, that there is no like afterlife for him and that he's just going to go to the void. That is very similar to Dan Brown's origin. Where there was a fanatic, spoiler, I guess, for that. There was a religious fanatic there that was like doing all of this crazy stuff. And there was like a spot on his head that he needed to, it was this whole thing. And like when he did that, he would go to like, he would achieve whatever. And he did it all. And he went to whatever and he got there and it was nothingness. It was just like nothing.
I understand the importance of Chandra's point of view. Don't get me wrong. But I also hated it. Chandra would listen to Andrew Tate. And
he would just number one fan.
And he is the person that I would be scared of if I would never leave my drink alone in a room with Chandra.
Never, ever, ever. Although he wouldn't be the one to do it. He would hire somebody to do it.
No, because he's, he can't get his hands dirty. He can't, but it's scary. It's scaring because of the amount of hate that he has towards women. I think that's the scariest part. And I think it's scary. Like, you have, like, the Yaksa are scary, and granted, they're terrifying. I think he's just as bad because, at least with the Yaksa, when we were just saying, like, they have a different set of morals. Chandra has no morals to begin with.
Yeah.
And that's the terrifying thing, because there are, again, the Yaksa are kind of like are mythical in this sense. And Chandra is very much a real person today.
Yeah. He's just a dude with issues in a place of power.
Yeah, because I was going to say, you can't even say, like, yeah, he's overseeing his area, but he doesn't have the true power that he's vying for, because, like, he wasn't the firstborn and he's not his sister. Like, he's stomping his foot and is angry about it. And this is how he's going about things.
Yes. How the Yaksa are going about things is demanding that Maline pay her price now, right? The Yaksa are calling the bargain due, because we're getting towards the tail end of this book. And the Yaksa say, yeah, you gave part of your heart to the Empress, to Maline. Cut that shit out and give it back to us. Go kill the Empress. That's what you got to do with this sacred, very race and ruin, with this, like, sacred knife or whatever that's going to, like, sink into your skin. Go do that. And it's just like, damn, the consequences of my own actions. Like, like, when she said that, I was like, oh yeah, of course, that's what it is. Of course, that's what it is. But in the chaos of the river, when she's making that bargain, it's like, whatever. I totally get it. Talk to me about Bhumika deciding what she decides here. She decides to go with Ashok and to learn how to destroy the Yaksa, and to give herself and cut herself off from the waters and everything that she knows.
And they kept saying that they couldn't promise that if she wasn't going to agree with it.
Yeah. And then Ashok is like, okay, so we're going to sneak away, and you're going to take, I believe it's Gunther, and we're going to go, and we are going to cut you off from the waters. And then when we cut you off from the waters, you're going to know everything that I know, all of the knowledge about the Yaksa, and you are going to figure out how to destroy us, because I have that knowledge. But this is like when Ashok is battling with who he actually is.
Like, between Ashok as, like, the soul of Ashok and the Yaksa as the soul of it. Like, they're going back and forth. So the Yaksa is giving Bhumika all of, like, that information.
Yeah, because he's not going to have any moral compass as Ashok for much longer. Like, he feels himself, like,
fully
awaking. Yeah, like, yuxifying. Yeah, he feels himself fully yuxifying. Oh, that's amazing. From now on, we're yuxifying. But he does. He feels himself like that. So this is, like, the only chance, which is why it's, like, so tragic, too. Because, like, Bhumika's cut off from Priya. She has no way to, like, tell her what's going on. So she writes that really beautiful letter. And she's like, don't come home. Like, this is what's happening. Like, it's very scary. It's very sad.
A lot of the choices that everybody's making as individuals, it's almost like they have no other choice but to make them alone. Each of them thinking what's better for the greater good.
Yes. Because Aditya finally decides to get off his fucking ass, even though he is losing in Saketa at the Maze Fort. But, Rao, poor Rao, he's so in love with him. But Rao goes and, there's this whole situation, and Aditya finally, after pussyfooting around for years, finds his calling. And that, I love this. Aditya finally finds his calling, and that is to willingly burn. It's just amazing. It's not Maline. It's not the girl. It's the guy who was called by fate to burn.
Which was opposite of where we were in the Jasmine throne, where it was assumed that it was always the women.
Yes. So Aditya finally, and, like, Rao has to watch it, and I feel bad for Rao. He has to, like, watch all of that. Rao just, like, never catches a break. But Aditya does burn, and, like, that, crushes the Maze Fort, and, like, and he says, tell everybody that Maline was crowned by a willing sacrifice. So and it was witnessed by everybody, so everybody knows.
And it was also to acknowledge, like, once again, even though he chose the priesthood when he, you know, from the first book, and he still willingly was part of the priesthood in the second book, nobody was like, and I don't know if we talked about it earlier in this episode or if it was something that we were chatting about before we started recording, where he once again was like, no, I'm doing this thing. I'm doing the priesthood, and nobody wanted to believe him. Now here we are. Like, no, for real, believe me. Like, my sister's it. Like, that's who it is. I didn't want any of this shit.
He's like, I didn't want any of this. I'm a priest. I found my calling. Peace out. Men. So I am looking at my notes, and we are up to the fantastically brutal scene where Maline stone cold murders her brother right in front of. She's just like, die slow and painful. I loved it. So good.
I loved it.
It was so good. Revenge just served. She's like, yeah, it's needle flower. It's fine. No, fuck you. It's oleander. You're going to burn from the inside. It's going to hurt, and you're going to choke on it. And she watched him. Ooh.
I love how she watched him, and then I think afterwards, like, she just kind of left it, and then everybody was like in a tizzy. Oh my God, he was found. And she's like, oh,
shocking. Is he dead?
Is he okay?
He's dead. Did you confirm it? You can confirm it.
Are we sure? Are we sure?
How many people confirmed it? Oh,
my
he's
poor
dead.
brother. No, but like at that time, she didn't know that Aditya did what he did. So it was afterwards. She was like, they were like, your brother died, and she was like, yeah, no. They're like, no,
the other one,
the one you like, even though like he kind of pisses you off.
Yeah, it's like, damn. But before this, of course, Chandra is dramatically betrayed by the priests, and that whole confrontation scene is just so good. Maline just like not.
Anything bad that happens to Chandra, you are not going to get an ounce of like emotion from me. Good. That's all.
Yep. Just like, nope.
Whatever. That time.
Priya has to go stab Maline. Meanwhile, Ashok takes Padma to Rook and says, run with Padma. You are responsible for her. You need to go. Ashok also says that Manihara is returning. We are preparing the way for her. And then it is revealed that Ashok is Araria, right? I have my note says Aria. It's like two separates, right?
It's two different words.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing Auralia from Throne of Glass. So now I'm like, wait.
Ari, Arali.
Arawia?
It is two different words. He is, so Ashok is revealed to be the second Yaksa that came out. They are preparing the way for Manihara, who is Priya, who has chosen Priya as her, like, her spokesperson. Yeah, all of that.
Manihara is gonna yuxify.
She's gonna yuxify. All the yuxifying. We are up now to my second favorite scene. This is, so Priya and Maline have a standoff, right? They have a fucking standoff, but Priya does the thing and she stabs Maline, and she does say, like, I didn't stab you in the heart. Like, you'll live, you'll survive this. And Maline is like, fuck you. I will hate you forever. And you know what? Fair. She's mad. I get it. But my favorite part of this is Karthik comes like strolling in. And he's like, about this. You're still going to burn, right? You're still going to burn? Yeah. Say it louder. And Maline's like, yeah, totally. I'll burn. Help me stand up.
And we listened to this in the audiobook, and the audio part of this is so, you're just like, because at this point, we know Maline at this, and you hear her like she's choking on her own blood. She's been stabbed. Like, she's struggling. Help. You can visual. It's so good. I'm just going to say it's so good.
And the words are like she's clawing her way through the tent, and like she's saying like she will not die. This will not be wrenched from her. She's just such a fucking badass. And what does she do? She's like, Karthik, yes, I will burn. I'll burn for Parijatdvipa. I will do it. And then she fucking stabs him in the neck like a fucking cold, stone cold killer. Oh my God.
No, but I don't even think of it like that. I love that. I don't even think she's like a stone cold killer. She's in survival mode. And she even said, you forgot one thing about me. Like,
I kill priests.
Yeah, like this is nothing to me. And shame on you. This is just like a whole like know your enemies kind of thing. If you didn't know this about me, like fuck you, because I've never made this a secret.
Yes. Oh gosh, she's so fucking awesome. So then she starts screaming for help, and then we have a dead priest, and Priya is gone, and the weird knife is there, and Maline has like wounds, like weird wounds from that knife, and Maline says, the priest says I have to live. I must live to save us from the Yaksa, because the Yaksa are returning. I must live. And at that point, I was like, you are amazing. Like,
you know, she's thinking on her feet so quick. It's like, remember Julie? Of course you remember Julie in Blackthorn. And in the first Dark Artifices, everybody's thinking on their feet real quick. We got to pull a line together.
Real fast.
And
Let's
nobody else is here. I love it. I'm
Yep.
here for it.
It was just amazing. And then of course, Maline passes out after that. She's out for like 3 weeks. And then she has to like get herself
like
together.
in and out of coma and stuff. Yeah.
Seema and Rao kind of go off together because Seema is left in camp after Priya disappears. Priya makes her way back to the Ahiranya.
Who does she see?
She sees
Ashok.
Fucking Ashok.
And I'm like, again?
Yep, fucking Ashok again. Of course, we know it's not Ashok, but she doesn't. Here's the thing. She doesn't know anything. Like, she doesn't know anything that has happened because she's been cut off this whole time. She just knows, like, something is fucky. And it's just, oh, my God. So that ended. I was just like, oh, my God. She's walking into this mess that she has no idea what's going on. And then, like, Maline, all of this stuff. The book ends like that. This book is fucking fantastic.
I can just keep gushing about it. But unfortunately, well, I can't say unfortunately. Unfortunately, based on our opinions, but other people didn't have the same opinions as like you. If people are listening at the tail end of this still, you could tell how much we were both very passionate about it. But not everybody had the same passion, or they were passionate, just not in the positive way, which everyone's entitled to their opinions, but
like, damn. And Jess did the work. Jess went on Reddit, like the queen that she is.
I did a Reddit. Y'all would be so proud.
So proud of her. And people didn't like the politicking. People thought it was slow. People thought it was too descriptive or like too.
They just it was like descriptions, slow, too. I saw somebody even said they didn't like the character arcs. It was just it's interesting because I know that there are some times that we've had the discussions of not needing all of the flowery descriptors, but it works in this case. Like, I felt so immersed. I wasn't like, oh my God, another one. I didn't fast forward or skip or anything. I felt it was necessary. People were saying it was slow. I didn't think it was slow. I think everything, I don't know if this book could have gotten away with being shorter.
I don't think so. I think you needed all of that you needed the atmosphere and the tension and the richness and the dark undercurrent of like wrongness. They say that a lot. There's like, it was wrong. Something was wrong. So it's like wrongness, sacrifice, hollowing, the will to live and defiance and in the face of like prophecy are kind of like the themes here. And they're all just so good. I am dying to know if you have a favorite scene.
I don't immediately. The only two that come to mind this very second were Maline unaliving, like stabbing him in the neck. Yeah. I think that's what she said. It was like it was quick. And just Maline and Priya scene together. Bhumika, there was a part that when she was talking to the Yaksa, like making the arrangement, and she wasn't, that part frustrated me and I love Bhumika, but that part frustrated me because she didn't ask the questions. It was another one of those situations where they're like, yeah, I just, fine, I guess, if you can't promise it, like, if that's the best you got. No, don't give me a best. I want it in writing.
Yeah, I want it in writing. I want a detailed bullet point list. Yeah.
But overall, I think it's really like just the self-awareness that was coming across, because, and it not even, there was no miscommunication. The communication was there, and everybody was like, knew where each other were. And like I said, because of the self-awareness, they knew where the other person was at, and they accepted each other because of all of it too. But I think I would have to do another reread to really be like, this is the scene. And we know do you have, I know your favorite scene. Do you have a scene that was just like kind of frustrating?
A scene that was kind of frustrating. No, because all the frustrating scenes ended up satisfying in the end. You know, they all got it. So no, not really frustrating. I was more just, I don't know. I was so deeply into it that it was hard to pull myself out of it when it was over. I just wanted to like keep going and find out what happens. I really just want to find out what happens, because I like stuff like this when this, this middle travel book, which is what kind of like middle books in a trilogy are. And that's what they're doing. They're just moving from place to place and having battles. Did not feel like that.
No. And that's been a critique that we've had in other traveling books where, whether it's a trilogy or duology, whatever it may be, it just felt like so much could be cut out. But it felt like so much, but for this book, it felt like so much was happening in those moments as well.
Yeah. And I think that goes to the writing being well done, and the politics being well thought out and well done, and easy to follow, but also intriguing enough that you actually care enough to follow. And that is important, because politics, when you are interested, are so easy to skip over and not make any connections. No, and I think the politics, they're necessary. You can't skip over it because it's the whole plot. Yes, it's the whole thing. You said earlier how you would love to see certain scenes in a HBO level, because we've gone through like different streaming services and different cable providers, what have you, studios making things. Would you want this into a series to get the details, or would you want it a studio level, like how Lord of the Rings is a trilogy, but it's a beloved movie trilogy also? I don't know. It would depend, what's the budget? And we don't have the third, and we don't have it. We don't have it. So like, what would be the budget? Because here's the thing. I was thinking about this earlier. So The Last of Us is coming out soon. And of course, like, I love video games. I love The Last of Us. I don't play The Last of Us. That's just because I personally don't play first-person shooters, but I have watched Editor Sam play The Last of Us. I really love it. And in that TV show, in that trailer, they have a very good visual of the clickers, which are plant-esque. So I feel like it could be done at an HBO level if you take the time to make, here's the thing, it could be very easy to make the Yaksa look bad, cheap, and CGI heavy. Yeah. Just bad when a practical effect would be amazing. So I think, or like a combination, kind of the way they did Davy Jones from Pirates, but like that kind of detail would just be lovely, right? If you had someone take the time to do it. So like, yes, a major motion picture could do that. But also I think with the politicking, I think it would be really nice to play it out on like a TV in a series. Yeah. Because this is just because it's in like fresh in my mind. Everybody is watching House of the Dragon, and with the time jumps there, everyone is kind of saying like, oh, I mean, awesome, but like, I would really love to stay here and like flesh out some of these politics a little bit more. So I think because of that interest, right, of like, move the story along, but like, let's flesh out these politics a little more. An audience could be there to make a case for TV.
Yeah. Plus, I don't think, like we were saying with the descriptors, I don't think you can really kind of skirt over some of the things. Like, it's all the amount of detail is necessary, and you might not necessarily get that in a movie.
Yeah.
It would be one of those, you see it in a movie, and then of course the book is better than the movie because it irons things out. But you would have to have that background.
You know what I have found very helpful in watching fantasy shows? This is just a little like tip that is not related to this book at all. But Jess, I know that you watch with captions on. I also watch with captions on. Sometimes captions can be kind of spoilery, and they give you the name of the person that is speaking, and that name might not be like in the conversation.
Oh, like they're in like the doorway or something, and we haven't cut to the doorway yet?
Yeah, but like they say something and then it's the name. It's like this person said something, but they're like not they're like not supposed to be named, but it's kind of like a spoiler. I have found that when you do that and you pay attention to that, it can be very helpful. And also whispered dialogue
whispered dialogue. Mm-hmm. I'm hard of hearing, so that always is huge for me. You're like, wait, what's being said?
Yeah. And in fantasy, whispered dialogue can be very important. So these are and especially in this book, with all of the whispering and like the politics and the overhearing.
Yeah.
So this is just where my head is at. But yeah. Yeah. It's also, we're recording on Sunday night. So I'm also in a very like Game of Thrones mindset.
So thanks for joining us. You can feel free to follow us on Instagram, ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. If you are listening on any of your social platforms that give ratings, we'd so appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating and any positive reviews if you have the time. So thanks again. We look forward to discussing more. We will note that Tasha's Story does have a third one coming out. It's the final book in the trilogy. No title yet, no cover reveal, but hopefully we find that out soon or within the new year. So thanks for listening, and talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.